is the approval of the content of the letter. You mentioned that you're taking it off of newsletters and other things like that. Is there going to be a formal approval process from somebody from the city?
We had not discussed an approval process, but quite literally, I came up with the first welcoming paragraph, but everything else literally is cut and paste. I highlight it, I cut it in and paste it. So there's no change, there's no editing to it, really.
Right.
It's just assembling it. As far as which events are included and which are not, I just basically set up a calendar and look at what's on the calendar, and that's what goes in, and go from there.
Right.
If you'd like to have it sent to Mr. Eckridge ahead of time, that's possible. The only issue is that with the review for the Alderman meetings and for the agenda for the next meeting, I believe the agenda is not finalized until the Friday before. And so for me to send out the email that Friday, I'd like to get it out as quickly as possible so that people can decide whether or not they'd like to come and participate on Tuesday. That cuts it a little short on my time and my weekend. So we would have to discuss a quick turnaround time on that one.
Right, there's some type of pre-approval. My concern is something going out on the newsletter that obviously it should not be going out.
Yes, obviously my opinions are not the appropriate thing to have in here, and I'm well aware of that, and we have discussed the appropriate content versus inappropriate content, so that has been.
So with that, is somebody in charge of Ms. Rainey and her activities, or?
Yeah, what we had discussed was Nikki Kahneman. She would be Ms. Rainey's contact. Help gather any information that Ms. Rainey needs to create this, and then either Nikki or myself. I had done the first one, the aldermanic meeting review. Somebody, either myself or her, will be creating that, and then Ms. Rainey will just merely cut and paste it into the document. We try to make this, as Karen kind of explained, try to make this as timely as possible. Given that really all the information is going to be cut and paste, we didn't see the need for a formal approval process with it, but it certainly could be implemented. It just might get a bit tricky on some of those weeks, especially weeks where the things come up, the agenda gets modified. It could get a little bit tight.
Right.
I can check with Nikki and let her know which events and which volunteer opportunities I'm including, and then leave the Alderman review, since you're providing that to me, leave that to the last minute, but the rest could be sent to her several days in advance. So we could do it that way.
Right. And my main concern there, and maybe this segues into my next issue, is being a resident and non-city employee, having a city email address. Does that open up any liabilities to the city if something did go out that was inappropriate? I'm not suggesting that you would, but
I'll let you pay me, and I'll be a city employee if you'd like. No, I realize that's not your issue. I have, in previous times, run the past 2 years, run the Home Expo as well, and so it works best coming from the city email, because most people will disregard or will send it to spam if it comes from my personal email. That's really the only reason to have the city email.
I understand that. Well, let me ask that to the city attorney.
Okay.
Any liability if something were to happen? I mean, it may put Ms. Rainey in a difficult situation, or the city in a situation.
Yeah, I don't see any liability issue as a volunteer or in this capacity, or serving on a board or a commission, or serving on the board of aldermen. Ms. Rainey is governed by all the various policies and procedures of the city. So what will happen is she will lose her ability to continue to serve in this capacity. But I don't see any issues of liability, particularly if the amount of new content is limited to virtually none, and everything else is really official documentation and content from the city. I don't see any issues, and I don't envision her misusing that email. But if it occurs, it will be taken back.
Right. So is she covered under any type of, I don't know, insurance that we might have? If,
I probably not. Probably not. But again, I think that as long as the protocol that I've heard here tonight is followed, I don't see any issues. And if issues come up, then we can deal with them.
okay, and I'm not suggesting
I
you, Ms. Rainey. I
understand.
mean, just
I
if
understand.
anybody were to
Yes.
have a city email address, it would be my concern. So,
I understand.
and that's where that's focused. So, I think that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering, how often does your newsletter come out? Quarterly?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months? Could we just have that one of your issues? And then as a duplicate, if you will, and then you don't have to worry if you're missing any content in that. And then every 2 months, it's our official one, and then you fill in
between.
your content in between. Just wondering if that would help, or make sure that we're consistent in what we're producing with the mayor's newsletter.
I'm not sure how well that newsletter would email out because I haven't worked with it before. The benefit to this particular format is that it is all a form. It's a template that I downloaded for free, so it's really quite simple for me to cut and paste in. Also, the intent with this one is to make it very quick and scannable for people. Instead of having 2 months worth of dates and events to look through, they just know, here's what's happening in the next 2 weeks. Here's a heads up about the meetings. That seems to work best with email and with people who kind of relate on an email basis. It's a possibility, but like I said, I've not even looked at how that would email out. And I do know that it is downloadable off the website usually.
Right.
So
The other thing is that you're concerned about the timing on agendas, and you could also put that disclaimer on modifications, and also the link to the city is also, the one that you have is always the most current one. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd worry too much about, because you could always say, please make sure you check, that kind of thing. And using the blind courtesy copy option is really kind of cool. I like that. That was kind of interesting. I'll have to remember that.
okay.
Well, it looks like that you could, that this could be, I'll say, Jeff?
Very good. Congratulations on coming up with the idea. I think it's very good. And you guys probably talked about it, but just so that everybody can hear it, you mentioned earlier, if you sent it out from the email address, regardless if it's a city email address or your address, but there's a chance that somebody's going to reply. Excuse me.
Yes.
What is the plan when somebody does reply? Because obviously you're not a city employee, and so I'm sure that there's a plan to handle that, but just so that we can all hear it.
My plan for that is if it is requesting further information on an event, I will email them back saying this is the person you need to contact. If I don't know who that person is, I can call the city and find out myself. I can forward their email to that person. If it is, hopefully most of the emails coming to me will be either requests to sign up or be removed, or suggestions for content, things people would like to see, and I will, of course, run those by the city first.
Great.
I'm
sorry.
But mostly anything that has to do with further information, I'll forward on to the pertinent people in the
Very
city.
good. Thanks again for your volunteer efforts.
No problem.
Yeah.